All right. Well, good afternoon. If you're here on the East Coast, or I guess almost Central Time, and if you're somewhere further out west, good morning. Thank you for joining my session today at acu-CONNECT about cash flow. Just some quick introductions. My name is Jeremy Potoka. I work with a lot of folks in the channel, ISVs, VARs, and I've been part of the Acumatica channel for about a decade now. And I'm really excited to show you some pretty practical things today from my perspective about how, if you're a VAR, how you can help your customers set up some things in Acumatica to support a stronger cash flow and accelerate cash flow. And if you're a client, maybe even just jot down some tips and tricks of what I'm going to cover today to do the same thing for yourself. So I'm really excited to just walk through some things and what I've observed is a really important topic, and what most folks would agree is an extremely important topic. We're going to be together for about 30 minutes, and I've got a lot to cover, so we're going to jump right in. A quick side note, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I know that right now there's about 32 people on. I'm sure we'll have a few more that are joining late. So thank you all for attending again. Would love for this to be as interactive as possible. So I am going to be looking at the chat as we go through the session today. I'll do my best to stop and answer questions. So out of all the topics that I could have covered as it relates to Acumatica and business systems today, why did I decide on cash flow? Well, I've got a couple of quotes here for why. One, which I couldn't find who did it. This is just kind of an unknown quote. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king. And for those of you that are business owners or have cash and fiscal responsibility for a company, you would probably agree with that, right? You don't pay people off of revenue. You don't pay people off of profit. You pay people off of the cash balance in your company's checking account at that point in time. Another great quote. This one's a little bit longer, but I thought it was interesting. We're going to talk about some of this today from financial statements and tools in Acumatica. The fact that one of the earlier lessons that this guy, Chris Chocola, learned in business was that balance sheets and income statements are fiction. Cash flow is reality. So again, I just thought that was pretty meaningful, especially when we talk about a GAAP accounting system, right? And pretty much anyone in Acumatica is going to be accrual-based. Sure, we have to satisfy legislative and financial reporting requirements for tax purposes and other reasons. But again, the lifeblood of our business is our cash flow. And a lot of people try to make this into a very complex conversation or tool set. And I want to kind of debunk that a little bit today. And the big takeaway, again, for today is, what are a couple of things that you might be able to apply? There's no one report that's going to all of a sudden, boom, allow you to start bringing cash in sooner. But there are probably a dozen, maybe 24 little things that could help you either collect on invoices faster, that could help you maybe take advantage of vendor discounts on AP, on the AP side, right? So it's, I'm not going, if you're looking for a silver bullet, you're going to walk away in 26 minutes severely disappointed in my session. But what I'm hoping is some very basic things that maybe you can take away and apply in the next week or so. I'm big on application out of these sessions, not just listen to me chat for a little bit about a topic. So I'm going to break this session into two segments. All right. One of those is managing your cash flow in Acumatica with different processes that exist and then functionality that exists. I work with a lot of net new clients, and I actually work with a lot of existing clients. And I do analysis of their sites sometimes and just see how can we optimize the system. And I will tell you that almost every single bullet on here is typically not set up. Maybe they're using an eighth of what you're seeing on this list. So we're going to cover all these bullet point items. I'll probably spend like a minute on each one, and then we'll move because, again, the session is relatively fast today. But these are all different features that we're going to jump into Acumatica or jump into a marketplace app and just learn a little bit more about tools from a practical standpoint, right? Like, what are some features and functionality that exist in an Acumatica or in an ISV solution that will be able to support you managing your cash flow better in Acumatica. The other side of this is reporting, right? And a lot of times when we talk about cash flow, people automatically think about reporting. Yes, that is a very important part of it. What are the reporting tools inside or connected to Acumatica that we're going to be able to manage our cash flow, right? And again, this is one that I see a lot of folks maybe use one or two of and then export it to Excel and try to do some forecasting in there. Although that works and it's great that we can just export data out of Acumatica, it's really nice for us to be able to leverage some tools that exist to help us manage that, to give us insight, to know us when we might need to dip into a line of credit. And you have a lot of options these days inside of the Acumatica application and again, within the marketplace solutions that exist. So that's really the core of what we're going to be covering. Different reporting options that you may or may not be using or know about, different features and functionality that you may or may not be using. And then we're going to come back inside the system, and we'll actually take a look at those. That's where we're headed next. Before I jump into the system, I just want to make sure, because I understand it's kind of a mixed bag of folks on the session today. Some of you are Acumatica veterans. Others of you may work with Acumatica, but one component of it. And some of you might be actually evaluating Acumatica as a new system. So I just wanted to share something that, again, many of you know, some of you may not. Acumatica ships the base product with 5 powerful reporting tools. Okay. We're going to take a look at all of these because part of how you monitor your cash flow within the system is using these reporting tools. There are a couple that I would highlight specifically. One is dashboards, right? The dashboarding feature is what you're going to be using to analyze high-level KPIs as it relates to cash flow and cash position. Acumatica also has a tool called generic inquiries, which really provides the basis of the dashboards and then also allows you to do pivot tables. I don't need to demo pivot tables. If you know what that is in Excel, you can do it within the Acumatica UI. So a really good example of one of the things I'm talking about here is some of you may not know that pivot tables exist in Acumatica. And it always kind of makes me laugh a little bit when I go watch a current client show me how they're doing their cash flow reporting. One of the things that they do is they actually export the data out and do a pivot in Excel, right? There's a really great way to do that within the Acumatica UI, and it's probably a very low level of effort to get there. So that might be relevant for certain folks on the session. There are 2 other reporting tools out of the box. One of them is for financial statement reporting, and then there's one more for foreman reports. It's similar to Crystal if you're familiar with Crystal reports. The ARM financial statements is where we're going to just take a look at a standard cash flow statement. Right, so we'll get this at all angles, but just realize Acumatica does ship the base product with several reporting tools. And I've got a couple bonus tools that we're going to at least talk about or I'll mention along the way. One is DataSelf, and DataSelf is a really unique BI solution created and embedded in Acumatica, created for Acumatica and embedded in Acumatica. It really is more forward-looking, right? Not me just analyzing prior data, but looking forward and actually forecasting out. The other thing that we'll talk about is Velixo reports, which many of you may be familiar with. It's a connected Excel-based reporting tool. All right, so lots of different options for you from a reporting standpoint. I'm going to spend probably roughly 8 to 10 minutes on reporting, 8 to 10 minutes covering some of those other features, and then I'll save just a couple minutes for questions. But as you can tell, we're going to fly through this today to make sure that we give you a really wide look of the system and what it's able to do from a cash flow standpoint. Acumatica, from a reporting standpoint, as I already mentioned, has dashboard functionality. So I'm logged into just a sample demonstration site that I've got set up for today. And one of the easiest ways to be able to report on specifically your outstanding AR, your overdue AR, is through a dashboard. This one ships out of the box. You can personalize it further. You can design some other widgets around here. But it's really easy for me to see color tolerance-wise as well as dollar-wise, what's my total overdue AR. And when I drill down on that, Acumatica opens up an inquiry for me. And again, just another little hint that some people may or may not know about is any of these inquiries you can filter. So if I wanted to be able to see, you know what, who's overdue the most, I can very easily just filter and sort using the column headers here, right? So if I want to see my biggest offender, it's Toy Star, right? No question about that. One of the things that you can do from these inquiries is actually create what Acumatica calls side panels. So I'm just going to put a quick filter on my invoices screen, and you'll see this little pop out here. This gives me the ability to actually go through and review details of a specific invoice or of a specific customer record. Anywhere that's blue is drillable, and it does allow me to actually go in and just like open up the invoices, open up the customer records, which is really nice. But sometimes I would just like to work from one screen and imagine opening up like a customer record in the right, the overdue amount in the left, and being able to, even without doing what I'm going to do here, which is expand this customer file, I can very easily have access to the customer record. One of the features, I'm going to take a little detour from reporting and just talk about one feature because it's related to these inquiries and side panels, is the ease of use for adding activities. So if I'm a collections, if I'm someone responsible for collections, one, the day it's past due, it hits my dashboard, right? So I'm going to be able to come into Acumatica and see that. Two, I can start with who owes us the most money first, right? So that's where I'm starting my day. The next thing that I'm going to wind up doing is I'm going to call into them, email them, and I can do all of that right here through the system, right? So I could create an email to Toy Star and say, Toy Star, what's going on? Open balance with my company, right? And I can put a full email, hi, so-and-so, please advise on open invoices. But the benefit, and I'll tell you, everybody, I see a lot of Acumatica customers that don't leverage these features, right? It's there. I see people actually print out of Outlook and attach a document because everyone, for the most part, knows how easy it is to attach documents. Well, what about just, actually sending it through the system? Again, these once, especially once you're live, these are little pieces that could take 30 minutes to an hour just to set up, train, and then have a user leveraging the system. So anyone that maybe has a question about Toy Star is going to be able to see from their customer record, yeah, we reached out 3 times this week for those open invoices and haven't heard. So some really great features from what a lot of people just think of as a report. It's not just a report, right? It's a live view of data with a side panel that allows me to view a list of invoices, view a list of customers, overdue balances, and actually have one screen to go in and make those collections contact points and be able to record those within the ERP so everyone has access to it. Right? I find that sometimes the breakdown of communication is why it doesn't happen. Well, did Sally do it, or did I do it, or I thought she did it, and now we've failed to send an email out. These seem like very simple things, but maybe the contact changed. Maybe they upgraded their Exchange server and it was blocking our AP invoices, right? Those are really unfortunate things, but the quicker that we can catch them and the more that we're having Acumatica monitor that and then us just take action, right? It's going to accelerate our cash flow potentially by a week on some of these invoices, right? If we just let them go too long. So leveraging the tools in here to be able to take quick action. This is a very tangible place to be able to see that. Outside of inquiries, side panels, some of that fun stuff that we just covered there briefly, right? Acumatica also has within the financial statement reporting tool set called the ARM, the Analytical Report Manager. Acumatica has a cash flow statement, right? Those of you that took financial accounting, managerial accounting, your core set of financials, right? Going back to Accounting 101 was your P&L or income statement, your balance sheet, and your statement of cash flow. I would say like among the customers I work with, only maybe 20 to 30% of them put the cash flow statement into Acumatica. It's a very easy report to configure. It's another data point. It's going to give you your actual cash flow. And it's just another component of being able to, again, we're analyzing history here. We're looking in the rearview mirror. which is just another data point to help us plan our cash flow out moving forward. Acumatica also has a cash flow forecast inquiry. This one is basically just an inquiry screen that's showing me dates. It's showing me expected receipts in from invoices. And it's another out-of-the-box inquiry screen that some people will use, right? Anytime you see this button at the top, you can actually view these as a report too. So this is now going to give it to me in a report view so I could go ahead and export it. All right. Now, all of these features are really, really neat, right? Acumatica provides things that we can do natively out of the box from a reporting standpoint of actual data. But one of the things that Acumatica, frankly, does not provide natively, and most ERP systems do not, is actually forecasting out into the future with a little more intuition. There's a great tool out there called DataSelf. And what DataSelf allows you to do, it allows you to basically connect and have a pre-built set of dashboards, right? So there's not like a massive BI project to get dashboards like this. All the connectors are built, the work has been done. It's just what level subscription do you want and how many dashboards do you want access to, right? In its simplest form, that's kind of what you're looking at here. And what I love about the DataSelf Advanced Analytics or Enterprise Analytics cash flow projection is that it's actually going to show me my projection, and it's going to chart it out on a line, right? And you can actually be a little bit more forward-looking, right? So this is colorful too. I can see in blue, I'm able to see invoices I'm anticipating collecting on. In orange, I'm seeing my accounts payable invoices, so vendors we've got to pay. And then in red, I've got payroll, right? This is the reality of a business owner, right? You have customers that might be late. You have vendors that you have to pay, or maybe you need to defer. And then you also have payroll. And I haven't met a business owner that has successfully deferred payroll. So that one you got to live with. This allows me to just have a lot more tangible control of where's my cash flow going, right? For some reason, this payroll here is going to be massive. Maybe it includes some quarterly payments, some quarterly commissions, and it's not like our normal payroll of $100,000 to $200,000. This is $520,000. So what this is demonstrating here is it's actually showing me, well, hey, your cash flow is going to dip here, right? And then I can also establish a line of credit line. Where might I need to tap into a line of credit, right? If we do that, we're going to need to pay interest. But at least I can start to analyze, is that going to be worth it? Should I dip into it? What else might we have going on? Does that fall in a time where we're paying taxes, right? We're also paying some quarterly income tax that we've withheld. So there's all sorts of great data that you can see out of this. And this is, again, more of an existing and into the future. This is my forecast moving forward in a very visual way. I could cover a lot more here, but unfortunately, we would run out of time if I did that. So I do just want to talk a little bit about what would be available inside of another reporting tool that some of you might be familiar with called Velixo. Well, Velixo is an Excel-based reporting tool, and I'm not going to do a demo of that today because it would take me a few extra minutes I don't have. But for those of you that are getting to a place in Acumatica where you're just exporting data to Excel, I would encourage you to use Velixo to do that. Why? Because you can actually work from within Velixo, and what winds up happening is that you're able to have Velixo live inside of your Excel. So Acumatica is basically living in my Excel through Velixo. So I can bring in trial balance. I can bring in like a list of open AP and open AR, and then I can really build out this meaningful report that might give me a better cash flow than just export and do some Excel magic totally disconnected from the ERP. So great way to link back into the ERP, super tight integration, and again, another mechanism or tool just to be able to monitor and forecast on cash flow. So I've got 8 minutes, like I mentioned, to be able to wrap up the other side of managing cash flow successfully in Acumatica. And the other side of that, I'll just flash the slide that I had mentioned, is some features and functionality that aren't necessarily reporting tool sets that would allow me to just be a little bit more efficient. Right? When we're talking about getting invoicing out, when we're talking about billing time, when we're talking about notifications to customers for aging or for statements or even for late past due invoices, right? Acumatica has a bunch of tools to be able to allow you to manage that inside of the system. So a couple, and again, if you look at that list, I basically have about 45 seconds on each one. So if any of these are of interest, jot it down, go to the community.acumatica site, email me, like whatever you need to do to get your answer, do that. But the first thing is business events. Again, this is a really underutilized tool inside of Acumatica. Business events are basically an internal notification tool and an external notification tool. So you can create tasks for employees internally, which may have some relevance around cash flow and collections. You also have the ability to be able to send customer notices out. So here I have one, an invoice is due in 15 days and hasn't been paid. And basically it's going to send out this email notification to customers. You could do text messages, you could do emails, and you can even modify this. I know one of the reasons why sometimes I find people don't like to automate this is if they're in a scenario where it's maybe more B2B than B2C, and the folks that have terms with you have been doing business with you for a long time, and it's higher dollar, lower volume, and this just doesn't feel personal, right? So you can really personalize these emails to sound or look as much like what you would go and write yourself. So this is a very kind of black and white example of it clearly sounds like a bot wrote it. Acumatica's business event tool is just writing this and sending it off. But personalize it, work with the tool a little bit, have it include additional info, have it, just give it that personal touch that your customers would expect out of you rather than just avoid it overall. This can do invoice in 15 days, invoice tomorrow. It can do your past due. So as much as you want to touch your customer in a meaningful way, go ahead and send these out. I find that this is a really helpful way to just automate communication. And again, from an accounts receivable perspective, which is one of the most important elements of cash flow, accelerating invoice payment and not allowing customers to be past due or past due for very long. For silly reasons. Like I said, lost invoices, change of staff, things happen. So the more we can communicate in a meaningful way to customers using these tools, it's not work for us to do. The system's just going to automatically send out these notices. We talked about the side panels already. There are also just some really simple tools for invoicing in Acumatica, like recurring transactions. So you have the ability to create recurring transactions in Acumatica. So like, for example, one of the things that I would say is from a recurring standpoint would be if you're doing any recurring billing and you're doing that manually today, try to use the recurring invoicing. Right? Again, if you do mid-month billing on the 15th or end of month, and depending on if Joe or Sally or Rob is in the office, you may not actually get that out for a few extra days. Well, guess what? You're going to, even if you put that date, your customer is going to put the date that they received it and then age it 10 days or 30 days. So how can we shorten that time window? Automating any transactions that we're able to. Even from a tax planning perspective, if you're someone that does a monthly tax accrual and actually transfers funds from, say, you're tracking to like an accrual savings for tax for your quarterly estimated payments, go ahead and schedule those. That way you make sure that they happen. It's just a good way to be able to get into a routine of at least segregating cash down to a bank account level if you're someone that does that, and make sure it happens. So you're limiting the surprises when you do have, again, a big quarterly payment and a bunch of outstanding AR, right? There's no silver bullet here, but all these things combined could make an impact for you. Another thing that I find along the lines of automated invoicing is that a lot of folks don't know about or turn on the automation schedules. So there are several automation schedules in Acumatica, again, for the purpose of getting invoices out as quickly as possible. For example, this one here. as if you're someone that has some sort of sales order fulfillment process, right? You're sending out inventory, for example, you want to be able to immediately, once that ships, you should be able to automatically email invoices, right? There are some automation screens that you are able to turn on and make sure that all of the invoices or shipments that have been sent, and now you can recognize that revenue, invoice your customer, right? There's this little automation schedule button. And again, anything as it relates to collecting on cash, invoicing a customer, the 3 to 5 day wait time that it takes for someone to review it or even look at it, or, well, we catch it at end of month. Maybe you're really good at end of month, right? Because you got to close. But in the mid-month, it just waits a little extra couple days. So these automation schedules are really great to be able to send that out. If you use the expense reporting module in Acumatica for the purpose of expense claims, expense receipts, and billing customers, so let's say you're in a type of business where you actually bill customers and you use Acumatica's expense receipt module, there's some features in here to be able to tag those as billable, tag them to a customer, and then within the module, there is a processing screen that would allow you to bill the expense claims. So again, if you're someone that's in that scenario, and right now they're recording the expenses, maybe you export it, you do some manipulation, you re-import it, right? Acumatica has a workflow out of the box for that. So this is one that for folks that are in this scenario, I find that like sometimes it could take 5 or 6 weeks before those are actually billed. Well, now you've had to reimburse your employee, and you also took too long to send invoices out, right? We're in a fully integrated ERP system that has standard workflows to be able to tag expenses, bill a customer, and have it all happen automatically. Configure the system to be able to do it, and then trust the system that it's doing it well, right? And that those are the couple of steps there to leverage that feature from a billing standpoint. Couple other things I'll just mention is at a high level, because we've got 3 minutes left for our session. I want to just answer a couple questions that might be in the chat. There are some really cool options in the marketplace now that can help with cash flow. One of them is called Core Chain Pay. This is a vendor digital payment solution. So they basically work with lots of vendors already. They would work with your vendors or your customers' vendors, and they would decide, well, how do you want to pay your vendors? We're talking AP now, right? Which you might be saying, well, now we're actually paying, we're paying our vendors. Well, there are a couple benefits to using one of these tools. One, it cuts down on the overhead to be able to manage the payment process, right? Paper checks, things like that. But you also maybe could get smarter about taking advantage of vendor discounts. Core Chain Pay is totally integrated for ACH, virtual card payments, even paper check and e-check. And one of the options that they have is that their customers are granted an unsecured line of credit to be able to, pay vendors. So if you want to take advantage of a quantity discount or an early pay discount, there are options that are available. And again, nobody wants to sign up for more credit than they need, but it's a great tool to be able to have and unsecured at that. So a lot more detail there that we could cover. Core Chain Pay, great tool for vendor payments. The last tool that I would just mention here is Repay. This is back on the AR and customer side. A great way to be able to automate your AR is convert more people to digital payments, right? So being able to have some tools to be able to send an invoice and allow them to click to pay the invoice, right? Or to be able to allow them to put in, their ACH credentials and pay via ACH. So again, we're accelerating the collections process there, therefore getting cash in your hands quicker. So it's 1:19. I'm going to stop there. And just a couple questions that I saw in the chat. Number one, does Acumatica have collections credit functions in the base system? Yes, there is some standard collections capability and credit management in the system. But again, if we're looking to get more detailed into not just like automated customer credit notifications or it doesn't do credit checking and, we can manage terms, days past due, put somebody on credit hold. That's kind of the extent of it. Where does customer response go to? So you can, in your configuration of the business events and notifications, you can actually schedule you can put in there like a reply to email address. So if someone replies to it, you can decide, is it going to a system email account or is it replying to Jeremy at presalesleader.com? Because that's where we put the reply to in. I know Nicole is on. She offered to email templates of the click to pay. And just a couple other comments there about the other solutions that we had provided. So I wanted to be conscious of everybody's time. So we're right at the top of the 30 minutes. I really appreciate you jumping on today to learn more about, again, no silver bullets here, but literally maybe 24 different things that you could implement today or tomorrow in order to help manage your cash flow, report on your cash flow, as well as accelerate cash flow, which is hopefully what some of those things are going to be able to do for you. So appreciate you jumping on and enjoy the rest of the acu-CONNECT sessions.